Hello, we are Ramiel Deticio, Jefferson and Dayoung, and we present DATMATH Quest II, which is an adventure game about a student who finds out that he has a project due on the same day. The player guides the student in making his project through in-game dialogue and minigames. At the end of this app, the student gets his GPA, which is dependent on the player's decisions and his scores on the minigames. The title and the name DATMATH hold no real significance other than it is a reference to our DISMATH class, as this project is a project for DISMATH. The plot itself is not based on an actual story, but it is inspired by our experiences, with the goal of being relatable despite being exaggerated. All the music and most of the character sprites and background were made by a member of our group. This is the main menu. It only contains two buttons, the start and the continue. We have implemented a save feature, which would save the player's progress through the game. The start button would wipe that save and start from the beginning, while the continue button would continue from the last save point. For now, let's start from the beginning. This is the dialogue screen. This is where most of the game takes place and is linked to majority of the other screens we have. The button is used to go through the dialogue and the story. The background color of the dialogue box is also changes depending on the character that is speaking. Actions are also assigned to certain dialogues. These all make use of lists, and pressing the button allows the game to go through that list one by one. In certain parts of the dialogue screen, the player will be allowed to make a choice out of three dialogues. Each decision will either affect other characters' reactions to the player's character, or affect the end GPA of the player, or both. This is to engage the player in the story as his actions affect the result. The first minigame is what we call the Thought Tapper. This is supposed to represent how the character thinks of a topic for his project. We made it so that in certain intervals, these bulbs which represent the ideas of the character, pop up at a random location. Tapping the bulbs gives the player a point, and the intervals at which the bulbs appear shorten as the game goes on. The second game is what we call the Memory Mania, which is basically a memory game about certain DISMATH concepts. This is supposed to represent how the character remembers his DATMATH lessons, and the characters are arranged at random and are assigned values using lists. If two cards with matching values are picked, then the player gets a point and the cards disappear. The third game is the DATMATH test, which is basically just a quiz with DISMATH concepts. The questions and answers in the list are in lists, and 5 questions are picked randomly from a pool of 10. The fourth and last game is what we call Gotta Go Fast, which is a side-scrolling runner game. The character's sprite is actually just in one spot, and changing and moving that image simulates the running animation. Making the clouds and obstacles move also help simulate this movement. All these movements are done using timers, similar to how the characters are moved in the dialog screen. If the player is late, points are deducted from the GPA, and if the player makes it in time, then points are added. The end GPA is calculated by adding and subtracting points the player gets from certain parts of the game. If the points are within a certain interval, then the player gets an assigned GPA. The GPA ranges from 0.0 to a 4.0. This app makes use of several DISMATH concepts, notably lists and algorithms for the dialogues and games.